Hang on one minute.
I think we're live. Okay, when you're ready, Ma.
I'm in the new office, so I'm still getting used to the people that come in and out. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Rainbow Table Talks, where we have an open and frank roundtable discussion on different topics, different mental health and societal topics that affect the LGBTQ community today. My name is Ma Dukes. My co-host Elizabeth Strauss is with us this evening. I do want to point out that we don't tolerate any hate speech. You're free to voice your opinions in a respectful manner. Again, no hate speech, no othering of people. Let's just be respectful adults and talk like we have some sense and respect each other for all of our differences and all of our opinions. That being said, tonight we're going to try to talk about what dating's like for us, for men, for women, for non-binary folks, however you identify. Like Elizabeth was alluding to earlier, dating you're in your 30s, correct? I believe 37.
I will be 31 in July. Not a 37 yet.
Who is 37? Somebody I know in our group is just getting ready to turn 37. So I apologize for mixing it up.
No, it's either a compliment of that you think I'm more mature than how old I am, or I need a lot of Botox. Or both.
No, your maturity level was off the hook. I didn't think but again, you have younger folks hitting on you. I'm in my 50s, so trying to find a date at 55 in the communities, like you kind of reduced to bar life or online dating situations, in a lot of times. So what do you guys think? Robert, are you there? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay.
So I'm still hoping to meet a partner. I've had 4 long-term partners. I'm hoping to meet another one. And 2 of the things I've learned about myself, which I do in relationships, which lead to ending them, is I don't decide in the first 3 months whether the man is a match for me. And if he, in the first 3 months, says that he loves me, I usually go along. So now I've changed that. I'm trying to make an active choice in early dating if it's a match or not. And one of the biggest challenges for that is when I find that the man isn't a match for me and I let him go, I have all this free time. So when I'm dating, I'm usually with him Saturday night. So what am I going to do Saturday night? So letting him go, I end up facing being alone again. The other thing I learned about myself in long-term relationships is that I'm conflict avoidant, and I've been in 2 relationships for over 5 years, and when they were ending, I found out both myself and my partner had a lot of gripes about each other, which we never shared with each other. and we let it build up to the point where the relationship ended. So I'm also trying to create a space in a relationship where both myself and my partner are allowed to express conflict and to give each other feedback about what they prefer. And those are the two things that I've been working on in relationships.
Okay, so can I ask you a question? In your area, do you find it difficult to meet men? Like, are you from an area where there is a large community population? How do you go about like just initiating contact with a new person?
I live I live in the southern part of Delaware, and it's a low population area. I used to live in the metropolitan DC area where there are millions of people. The whole population during the non-beach time is about 20,000, but during the summer the population increases to 100,000. So I I meet people at um, bear events where people meet at bars, and I just joined a sports league, the Varsity Gay League. I'm playing Monday night cornhole, and I'm hoping that will lead to meeting new people. We also have a gay community center called Camp Rehoboth, and I've participated in um, several activities through that group where I've met people, but only acquaintances. I haven't become friends or lovers with anyone.
How about you, Elizabeth? Like, do you find it easy to meet new people at your age, where you live? I know you live in New York City, or you used to,
I
but you
still do.
still do spend a lot of time there.
Yeah. Um, I'm 30 and a half or almost 31, and I find it incredibly hard dating my whole life. Um, I live on Long Island slash New York City on the Upper West Side, and I've dated on Long Island, where I currently am now. I've dated in New York City, where my apartment is, and it's hard. And I have dated all genders. I've dated men and non-binary people and women and genderqueer, and that's a pronoun. My pronouns have changed for some of our viewers tuning in. I identify as bigender now, so female slash genderqueer, and that a lot of that came from our previous episode, which is a comforting thing to know what we're doing here on the platform. And it is hard. I was talking to a mutual friend of Ma Dukes and I's earlier that for me, it's like I've tried dating older. So I'm 31. I've tried dating 40s. And when I was in my 20s, I tried just dating women, mostly women in their 30s. When I was in my 20s, it was a mix of 20s and 30 men and women and non-binary people. And for me, it's like, especially last night, for example, I went out and there were people, college age students or early 20s, and we were having a good time. And there was a lot of flirting and dancing and getting to know each other. And, the ones that are 19, I didn't really want to click with, mostly because I have a rule for myself. I don't drink, but if you can't buy yourself an alcoholic beverage, whether you choose to drink alcohol or not, you should be able to. That's my rule. So I will not date anyone under the age of 21, but that's just me. But, for the people I was clicking with 21 and over, it's, we always go to each other at this poetry cafe we're a part of. What's your Instagram handle? It's not really anymore, can I get your phone number? Now it's more these days. I mean, sometimes it is, but now it's more, can I get your Instagram handle? And, some of us have bios right on our social media profiles, which is nice. And for mine are more for professional reasons, what I do in my Instagram. And people are reading it, and like, I always feel like when it's someone I'm interested in and they're reading my bio before they click to follow me, they're so intimidated. And I don't know why. And I always feel like I have to apologize for being me. So if you go on my Instagram bio, it says I'm the CEO and the founder and producer of the Broadway Brokers Network, because I am. And I'm a Broadway veteran because I've been working on Broadway for 10 plus years. And I'm a licensed real estate agent, because I am. And what I think it says, I'm the creator Pancus, which is a poetry style I created. And, just as an extra thing, I am a marathon runner. I have completed that marathons and I'm going to do more. And it's actually something that I'm kind of interested in right now. They look at it and it's like, I felt like I had to apologize for being me. And it just doesn't, it's hard for me to click with a partner. And I tried for a poly lifestyle in my 20s, and that's not for me. I respect that lifestyle for other people if that's what they want to be in. But for me, I like monogamy. And I can't find that balance of trying to find a partner again, because I haven't, the last person who accepted who I was fully, we can't be in each other's lives anymore. It's just not a good time and probably ever for us to be in each other's lives, even as friends. But I've moved past that and mourned that relationship, and I wish her the best in life. But I wish I could meet someone who preferably lives in New York. I mean, New Jersey, Connecticut, okay, but in the tri-state area that I can click with. And I've tried online dating, I've tried in person. I'm not really someone that loves to go to bars because I don't drink and I don't love that atmosphere, but because I don't feel there's a lot of consent in that atmosphere all the time. For me, I have been grabbed without consent, and that's not comfortable for me. If you want to talk to me or dance with me, you can ask, and most likely I'll say yes back, but just ask, and please ask for my consent. But that's kind of my history. I'm single right now, and I haven't been in a relationship for a while, and dating's been weird for me in the last year. And I talked about this on previous episodes. I've been queer baited this year, and for anyone who has, I'm sorry if anyone has been in that situation like me, but it's really hard. Like mentally, it's just exhausting and draining trying to move past that. So, and like my brother is getting married this year and I'm so happy for him, but there's also like this part of me is like, I wish I could find that person. Like, I'm so happy he has his person. I love her for him. But like, I want to find my person too. And so it's been a very hard, dating's always been an interesting kind of complicated journey in my life.
I would have to say it's probably an interesting, complicated journey in everyone's life, if for different reasons. Shaki, I saw you kind of nodding your head with some things that Elizabeth was saying and in the comments. Do you mind if I ask like some of your experience with dating where you are?
Well, first, I wanted to ask a question because I'm not familiar. What is queer baiting?
Queer baiting is when someone who is usually not 100% comfortable in their gender, sexuality, or both, or sexual orientation. So it tends to be more cis female doing it to other female or non-binary people, where they kind of allude that they want to be in a relationship with you. They give you all the signals that they want a romantic or sexual or kind of relationship with you, and then when you make that move on them, they kind of pull the rug out from you and be like, oh, I identify as heterosexual. Now, this is not me saying there's anything wrong with being heterosexual. I love our allies. We need allies. But I think some of these, I'm going to say women because it tends to happen more with cis females that do the queer baiting. They find the comfort of another female like close to them, but it's not reciprocated as I want to be your best friend or like your sister. They're acting like they want to be your partner. And I learned what that was for the first time this year from my therapist, who is heterosexual. And when she taught me that term queer baiting and love bombing, which is people just throwing they don't realize they're throwing so much affection on you, it can be very toxic and negative. It's very detrimental. And, doing my research on it, I realized that was what happened to me when I called the person who did it to me out. They said they were sorry, but they didn't, and I explained what it was, but they didn't really want to take responsibility for how much damage they had done to me. So I hope that helps with the clarification of that term.
Yeah, it does. I never knew what that like was. It had a
Yeah.
term for that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I would say my experiences are pretty much the same. Unfortunately, since the pandemic started, I just moved to Pittsburgh like a few years ago, so I don't really know anyone here other than the girl that I dated when I moved here, which is also a really bad place to be in. But since the pandemic started, I've been working from home. I work out at home. I do everything at home, so I really don't get out to do much. So it makes dating really hard. I also do not drink, so like to meet people, it's always like, let's go to a bar, let's get drunk, and it's like I don't want to be in that scene if I'm not, that used to be my thing, but now it's just not. So it's just really hard to meet people. And I hate online dating. I feel like, they're swiping right on a picture and it's just like, I don't know, it doesn't work well.
I tried online dating. It's the worst.
It never works out.
That Her app is the scariest thing I've ever been on in my life. So, yeah.
I think I downloaded it for a day and then deleted it.
I wanted to comment on, for me, making appropriate disclosure to making the first date successful so the man that I'm with doesn't feel intimidated. I worked in the entertainment field, and on a first date, I will tell them that I was a writer, but I won't disclose that I worked in the entertainment field, what television shows I worked on. Um, the other thing is that I'm very capable of being very fast on my feet, and I also avoid leading with humor and making being a comic on a first date, because I don't want to lead with that. I want to lead with being a man. And I also come from a family where there was mental illness and drugs and alcohol. I don't disclose that until at least the third date. So I don't come out right away with everything. And I think that's better for me.
Well, it's all a getting to know each other process, and it's two people trying to figure out if their weird fits together. I say it like that, but seriously, it's two people trying to figure out if let me put it to you this way. Somebody once asked me what being gay means to me, like, is it all about the sex? And for me, the sex is an added bonus, but being a lesbian for me is, I prefer to do the daily intimate tasks of life, whether that's getting up and making coffee for my partner, working together in the garden, whatever the case may be. But the daily tasks of living life with someone, I prefer to do in the company of a woman. The sex, is an added bonus, but when I'm dating someone or trying to find someone, that I want to date, I'm looking for are we compatible in those ways, And it takes a while to build up a trust to enough to let somebody in to see all of the intimate parts of yourself. So yeah, Robert, I understand where it's, I don't know if I necessarily would count the dates, but I get where you're coming from, that it's, you want to take a while to know that you can trust this person with those intimate details of yourself.
Mhm. What type of physical contact, if you have a good date with a woman, uh, would you have? Would you kiss? Would you have sex on a first date?
Not me personally, I've never really been into casual sex. Um, but maybe holding hands on the walk from the restaurant to the car, or a kiss goodnight, something like that. But going back to what Elizabeth said earlier, there's a very key word, and that's consent. I'm gonna make sure that the woman that I'm want to date or whatever, is it okay if I hold your hand? Can we hold hands while we're walking to the park? Or is it okay if I kiss you goodnight? Consent is and can be a very not
It's
only
kind of
liberating.
sexy.
Yes, that's where I was going. Consent is a very sexy word, is a very sexy thing. And sometimes getting that consent in the appropriate stages, maybe appropriate isn't the right word, but you get where I'm going. The first couple dates, you get your kisses and your hand holding, and then maybe the third or fourth date, it gets a little heavier, as you go through the stages of getting to know someone and meeting them
Mhm.
and learning
Yeah.
who they are and trusting them. It's a whole different level.
I will say I have had sex on first dates. But because it felt like it was consensual, obviously, but it's because the attraction was more consensual between me and the person. And we both felt at the time, well, if we're both interested, why not?
Right.
It didn't ruin the relation. Like, if we weren't together in the long run, or for however long we saw each other, that for me, I can only speak from my personal experience. For me, having sex or being intimate with someone on a first date or the first several dates was not the reason the relationship uh did no longer exist. It was, mostly communication and schedules and
Right.
stuff like that. But for me, it was not ever, oh, we slept together too
Right.
quickly. Now, whether someone wants to wait a while with their partners, or, that's their business. I don't judge someone for having sex on a first date, or if they choose to wait
Right.
several months or a year. That's their personal relationship, their business. But for me, it depends on the person. Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying that I haven't or that I wouldn't rule it out, if there was, if I met someone with that type of wow, knock me off my feet attraction. But in general, I'm not much for casual sex, nor, like you said, I'm very monogamous, and that's a lot to do with, because my sexual attraction has to do with my emotional attraction. So
Yeah. I say I'm a pansexual lesbian.
On a
That's
on a first date, the first thing that I'm looking for is to see whether the man comes and whether he arrives on time, like within 15 minutes of when we agreed to meet. And then during the date, I'm trying to figure out, do I feel any emotional connection or any physical attraction to him? And if I do feel a physical attraction, probably for the second part of the date, we will have sex. But if I don't, then I'll just say goodbye.
yeah, and that's okay. That's your personal dating journey and how you want to find a mate. It it's tailored. It's just tailored so personally to how everyone everyone is.
and I'm in my mid-50s, so there's a time thing. I belong to a group of, I think the title is specifically mid to later in life lesbian lounge. Place to just, talk with other women my age. There are some women that have dated within the group and have found success, etc., and some that have not. But I think the common theme is as we get older, like there becomes almost either a desperation or a resolution, a desperation to find a partner before it's too late, I get too old, nobody wants to love me, or a resolution that the hell with it, I can, I'll be happy the rest of my life alone. I don't need anyone else. I seem to find like the discussions go in one of those two veins. You still have women that are very hopeful of finding a partner and women that have just resolved themselves to it's not going to happen to them at this point in their lives. So that is a little daunting for my age. What gives me hope though is there's an 80-year-old woman in there that is still looking fine and trying to find love. So it gives me hope that maybe, it's still out there for me yet.
I think there's hope for all of us. If I try to put positivity towards it every day. It's hard. And I will say, like, even if the date is not going great for me, but I want to try to have some hope, I will try to have a first kiss on a date. Not more than that if I'm like, I really don't think I'm going to click with this person, but a first date will tell you so much that for me it helps, because if you really don't feel anything in that first kiss, I'm probably just not going to feel it moving forward. So it's like, okay, we had like one kiss and the world didn't end, and I don't have to see that person ever again if I don't want to. So if when that first kiss feels great, when the sparks are flying. So that for me, I was saying to someone last night, I don't mind a first kiss on a first date, even if I don't think it's going to move forward with the person. Kind of like that, just the closure for me. Sealed it with a kiss. We sealed it with a kiss, and then whatever, we moved on to scrolling through our ex's Instagram. I don't know.
Shaki, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, like, for my age group, and it goes back to what she was saying about intimidation on the other end, like being a masked lesbian, like so much stuff is so heteronormative with relationships lately that, like, if I try to date younger, like they expect me to like own a house, have a car, have like, and I do, I have my own place, but they want you to be completely established and then ready for them to just move in without them doing anything, like not a 50-50 relationship kind of thing. They expect you to basically be the man in the relationship. And then on the other hand, I see like, if I try to date older, I get into that situation where it's intimidating, like she was saying, she's a CEO and all that. I try to talk to someone and like, I feel like I'm not good enough because they might say something like, I'm a CEO and things like, you know what I mean? So there's like this middle ground that like no one's on kind of thing. I
would never judge someone for what they, as long as you're happy and making a comfortable living where you can support yourself and what you're doing, I would never judge someone for that. My professional goals are different from everyone else, so.
Yeah.
And it's never been my personal thing. It's just like from dating and the way like people have, come to me like, oh, you don't make this much money or that much money. Like I'm happy where I'm at, but then I get intimidated because that other spectrum has like dug it in my head that I need to be this, it's just weird.
I mean, I don't want to personally date someone that is like, can't support themselves financially. That's important to me because we are going to be supporting each other, right? If it moves forward in the long run, we meet with a joint account. But it also, to me, it shows if you can't, and this is just my dating, everyone's different. If you can't financially support yourself one way at a certain age, okay, 31 or late 20s, that there's like a maturity that comes with that though. I understand people have their financial struggles, but if there's like what you're telling me leading up to that, and I'm seeing like a lot of lack in the maturity, that's like a turn off for me because it just shows like patterns of their development as a person. Yeah.
I can relate to that. And to go back to what Shaki was saying, so it's almost like a spectrum. younger, they want you to be the sugar daddy, the quote unquote man of the relationship, take care of me, take care of the house, and I'm gonna fill this quote unquote heteronormative female role in the relationship. But then when you try to date older, you get intimidated because you feel like they're expecting the same, they think, how am I putting this? Like older, and you say that they're more established and they have this and that. Do you think they're looking at you thinking, well, she's younger and she doesn't have this and this and this, and maybe she's looking at me for those same things that the youngers are looking at you for? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm not established. I'm
Oh,
comfortable.
I understand what
I
you're
like
saying.
and I do take care of myself. It's just I don't know. I always feel like there's always this. It really has to do with the whole. They want you to be the 50s male version. Like that's what they're looking for, and it's I don't know. It's hard to live up to for myself.
Yeah, no, I understand. Like for me, I'm such an uber feminist that I couldn't be with someone that wasn't like 50-50 about that. If they're like, I am not into sugar daddy, sugar mama. I'm not someone's sugar baby. Like that's not for me. Like if I go take someone on a date to dinner, I don't mind paying for it, but like it also will turn me off like, oh, do you want to split it? Or I'll offer like, oh, do you want to split it? So, because it's nice. It's nice to see that balance of equality and equity. For me, I think that's sexy, but
I like knowing myself and making a choice that I don't want to be a sugar daddy. Um, but it's also an opportunity to communicate and work things out for money. My last partner, when we used to go out to eat, he used to have an alcoholic beverage and I didn't. So his part of the meal was maybe $10 more than mine. And we were seeing each other 4 times a week. And I discussed it with him and we worked it out so that we would split the bill, but he would pay the tip. And that worked for us. So the
Again,
communication was good.
communication. For me, I can't, any relationship, whether it's friendship, dating, mother to a child, father to child, siblings, communication, honest and open communication. Without that, any relationship is doomed to fail.
that's any
And I don't care
relationship.
what kind of relationship it is.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's any relationship, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you have that, even from the first date, okay, well, and I think hidden expectations are a big destroyer of relationships, unspoken expectations. Where you go into a relationship and this person has, whether it's normative gender roles, in a relationship, this person comes in and they expect you to be, in Shocky and I's case, like the man of the relationship, but they don't really tell you that first. It's just, it goes along and they see how you are. And so they expect a certain behavior from you without discussing what their expectations of you are. I want to know, like, if I'm in a relationship and we're going to talk about everything, and that includes, like you mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, joint bank accounts. I know some folks that they keep all of their money separate. They pay different bills out of their mutual, their individual accounts. They have a joint account for family emergencies, household emergencies. They take separate vacations. They also take a vacation together. And that works for them. They keep all of their money separate. And 32 years later, it works for them. Other people, they want to get to know each other, and they have joint accounts, so that there's that equity and there's that transparency and everything. And it's just a matter of communicating, whether it's, oh, we're going to split the bill and you pay the tip because you got the Manhattan tonight and I didn't, or hey, the electric bill's yours this month and I'm going to pay the cable bill and we need to put money in the account for the rent. Or as something as simple as whose turn it is to do the dishes. You gotta, I know it sounds silly, but if I'm expecting her to do the dishes and she's expecting me to do the dishes, no damn dishes are getting done, and eventually we're eating off paper plates because nobody communicated to the other person the expectation that you're gonna do the dishes. And I hate, I've had this come up in my most recent relationship, and that, so it's a very fresh topic for me, is, if you expect something of me, I can't fulfill your expectations if you don't tell me what they are.
Right. I want to have a partner where I have relative equality. It doesn't have to be 50-50. And one of the very early things which I can look at, let's say we go on 2 dates, which is if I make the choice of the place and the activity for the second date, I ask the man to make the choice and the place for the second date, because I want to have equality. I don't want to be making all the choices in the relationship. So in the second date, that's that's a very good thing for me to do, to see whether there's the hope of having equality.
I don't think any relationship, in my opinion, is 50-50. I'm going to give 100%, and I want my partner to give 100%. And some days I may not have 100%. Maybe I only got 80%. But the point is, we're not halves of a whole. We're both wholes coming into something to make it a partnership. And Robert, to piggyback off what you were saying, I don't know that I want equality in a relationship as much as equity. Okay, because I have physical health issues. I have mental health issues. I am not going to be 100% my best 100% of every minute of every day. And I know that, and have no expectations that my partner is going to be 100% of the time. So there becomes a balance of equity. Maybe, I cook dinner and she knows I don't feel good, so she's going to do the dishes and clean up afterwards. And there's an equity and a balance. But I don't think that there'll ever be a true equality in any relationship. And I'm really fine picking the semantics of the two words here, but for me, it's an important distinction.
I agree with that, because I think it's impossible to be, you said it perfectly, like completely 50-50. I struggle with mental health. Most people struggle with mental health, by the way, on some spectrum. They just don't necessarily want to call it that because there's a stigma around that phrase. But, I struggle with anxiety, and I don't have any shame in that. But there are going to be great days, and there are going to be days when I have a person in my life that I'm like, want to crawl into a hole, and they might have their days they want to crawl into a hole or have some space. But as long as you communicate openly, that's just really it. It's just communicating openly. And if they can't value that equity, then yeah, they're probably not the person you should be with. And there's this fear of being alone. I think we've all feared it at some point in our lives. I have, especially recently, and it's like it gets hard as you get older. And a question I want to throw out to everyone in the group, and Mal, you can address it first, is, so we labels, is like a big thing, even though it kind of shouldn't be. But you know, we know for when someone identifies as male, you say boyfriend, and when someone identifies as female, girlfriend. But and partner. But I guess like for me, partner is such a committed word. Like partner holds a lot of weight for me. But if you're dating someone who is genderqueer or non-binary and they don't associate with the label girlfriend or boyfriend, when is it too early to refer to someone as your partner? Because unless I'm just reading like way too much into it, for me there's just a lot of weight with that word, like, right? Because it used to, most people, when gay marriage was not legal in all 50 states, they would say life partner, right? But now we don't hear that as much anymore. We just hear partner. So what are your thoughts on that?
I kind of agree that partner, significant other, those two carry a
Yeah.
little more weight. I mean, do you refer to them as the person I'm dating? Like,
Yeah, it's just a
I
lot of,
mean,
it's a lot of words to come out of your mouth, whether you're just like, oh, hi, this is my boyfriend, you know? Because we know, like, we know boyfriend is not fiance, but we know boyfriend is not necessarily long-term partner. Boyfriend could mean we've been dating for a couple months, or girlfriend. So it's like when you're, for me, I wouldn't know when to say that, I guess.
I'm with you on that. It's that's a kind of fine line to where do you go from when you're just dating someone to into a relationship? Where does that cross over from dating to partnership or significant other?
Yeah.
Sounds like they're gonna be at boo status until we figure it out.
Sorry, what'd you
I
say?
like
What'd
that.
you say? What did you
So
say?
they'll be at boo status until you figure it out. It's my boo.
Oh, boo. I liked boo till recently, and then I got queer baited with the word boo. So, but that's just me. The word boo is a little salty
Tender
for me
right
right
now.
now. Tender. Eventually, it'll be fine for me, and I don't mind when other people say it. But for me, it's a little tender because it was the word that I was called in that relationship with that former person.
I'll weigh in. For me, I would say I would call a man my boyfriend when we've been dating for 3 months at least. And when I feel that I love him and I've told him, then I would call him my boyfriend. Otherwise, no.
So you
Well, I get,
feel
yeah.
that love has to be involved before you go from dating to boyfriend to partner? I mean,
That's what
Well,
I'm saying. Like for non-binary people, where do you go from like, because you would go from dating to boyfriend or girlfriend to partner. Where is that for people who identify in the non-binary community?
unfortunately, I can't really speak to that, but we'll
Yeah,
definitely
we
have
gotta
to
figure
bring
out.
it up to Dr. Ivy or one of the other panelists in a future show.
Yeah, I don't know what anyone else in the room might like. What's a label we could use? Because yeah, significant for me, significant partner just feels so much weight.
Well, I know, like, as a person who, who's I'm straight, but it's even with that, um, having been divorced and stuff like that, I'm very, I'm more careful now, um, as far as like the time in which um I give somebody a label. Because even if I call you my sister, um, I'm still like there comes a level of expectation with every position that I give somebody. So um there's a certain respect level or a certain level of affection I give that person based on the word I assign, quote unquote, to them. So I guess it all is all up to the couple or the two people that are involved. But because I know with my previous marriage, I was with her for 4 months before we got married. But I mean, with that, like, I didn't feel anything was wrong with it because I know people are with each other sexually before, like in less than 4 months. So I didn't think anything was wrong with that. But you know, you live and you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Labels are just, you have to build the foundation of any relationship.
You know, in the 1950s and 60s, when you wanted somebody to be your boyfriend or girlfriend, you used to have some type of pin and pin them with it. But we don't do that anymore.
Oh yeah, people did pin, or they asked you to go steady,
Uh-huh,
right?
go
Is that a
steady.
thing?
Class ring.
Class ring
Class ring, uh-huh.
If somebody gave you their class ring, boy, you guys
or
were
Letterman
like,
jacket.
yeah, Letterman jacket. I have mine.
Yeah,
I didn't need anybody else's. I had one of my own. Thank you very much.
I just and I have my own. I have my own class ring that I never wore. I don't really like it, but it's just sitting in a jewelry box somewhere. Yeah, go steady, I guess, or exclusive. I guess that's what people say now, right? Are we exclusive if they're in a monogamous relationship, or if they're poly, they say they have their primary, right?
Yeah,
Is
I've
that
heard that
what?
term a lot, primary and secondary.
Primary,
partners. Yeah.
secondary, and then exclusive or DTR defined, like when do you define the relationship? That's what the kids say, I think.
The kids. Oh my goodness. You're a kid to me.
You were at that poetry cafe last night.
My oldest
I
daughter.
felt
My
like a
oldest
mommy.
daughter is older than you, is like, you're about the same age. Let's see. You were born
31.
in, if you're 31.
I was born in
80
91, so I'm almost 31.
Right, okay. She was born in 85. Shit. My
So she's 6 years older than
my
me.
youngest was born. Holy shit.
I'm
My
a
youngest,
class.
my youngest was
classic
born in
soul.
1989. So
Okay, so 2 years.
yeah, I have 3 adult children
Oh wow,
and
that's awesome.
handfuls of grands.
That's awesome. See, I want that one day. Like I already said to my brother, he's engaged, newly engaged, and I'm like, okay, when are you popping out some squirts? Because his partner's female, so his fiance. And I'm like, he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I just want like a niece or nephew or whatever the kid chooses to identify as when they're older and realize it to spoil. And they'll get there, but
Every kid needs a good auntie like you.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. What are lesbian? I know there's gunkle for gay uncles. What are lesbians? Does that have something? I don't know.
I don't know either.
I've never heard that term before. I've never heard
Gunkle?
that.
If you're a
Yeah.
stud,
Gay
you be uncle or statty.
Gay
But
gay uncle. In New York City, they're all gunkles.
You know, the
They
first time I babysat for my nephew, who was about 4 or 5, and he kept on crying. I couldn't get him to stop crying. And then I found out later what I needed to do is take the E.T. movie and put it on, and he would stop crying. But I didn't know that at the time.
Uh,
You
ET
need to know what
constantly.
gets the kid to stop crying.
right.
ET. Well, ET makes most people cry at the end. So there's the irony of that when he and Elliot have to say goodbye. Yeah. No, if you come to New York City ever, there's a lot of gunkles taking their nephews and their nieces to like Broadway shows. It'd be like Gunkle Day with that, they're Wicked or whatever they're saying.
When I adopted my 2 nieces in the native way, and we had a ceremony in the teepee and everything, and it was over. The younger one, Lindsay, and she looked at me. She said, "So, do I call you Auntie Dukes or Uncle Dukes now?"
Uh-huh.
I said, "You can call me whatever you want, honey." But I'm that Ma Dukes, Auntie Dukes, and I'm just a combination of who I am. The kids call me Grammy Duke. My grandkids, they call me Grammy Dukes. And it all started because my oldest daughter's first boyfriend, he'd come over and hang out and play video games and have dinner and whatnot. And he started calling me Ma Dukes. And it just kind of stuck. And then when my oldest grandchild was born, I'm like, I'm only 37 years old. I ain't ready to be grandma or granny or ma'am. No, 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 no. It's Grammy Dukes. And that's it, and so it kind of stuck over the years. And here I am 55, 36 years later, and still being called Ma Dukes.
Wow. I like my Dukes.
It's pretty cool.
I didn't realize that. I thought it was just your spoken word name, but
It's been my nickname since my oldest daughter was like 13, 14 years old. So yeah,
yeah,
pretty
maybe my nieces and nephews will just call me Deadpan Lizzie.
well, there you go.
There you go.
Have another topic for making the first date safe.
Yeah, we can talk about it now.
Sometimes I prefer to meet during the day as opposed to at night. And then I could look at the man's face and remember what his face looked on the computer and see whether it's the same man at the same age.
I think there's always, especially in this day and age, it's a smart thing to have a safety plan anytime you meet someone new. When I sell something on Marketplace, I let my sister know, hey, I have somebody coming to the door at this time to supposedly buy this item that I'm selling. I'll call you when it's over if you don't hear from me in a certain amount of time. And I think, we should have a backup plan like that for dating. I'm going on this date. We're supposed to go here. I'll check in afterwards. Too many women, too many people in general, but women, unfortunately, more often than not, go missing or have attacks happen and things like this in Ubers or in first dates, speed dating. Anybody ever went to one of those? The
I
speed
thought
dating.
about doing speed dating.
So I think you're right, Robert. Meet in the daytime the first time, have a safety plan, let people know where you're going, who you're going with. Take a screenshot of their profile if you can. So you have a picture to send to somebody. I just think that should be a common sense thing at this point. The operative word there being common.
I mean, I kind of miss. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Robert.
I always go to the place myself in my own transportation. I drive myself. I don't let him pick me up. I meet at a public place. But I have to say, though, that my mother always asks me when I go on a date, I meet somebody through the computer. She wants to know, his first name, his last name, and all this stuff about him that I won't tell her. She's so nosy.
Well,
Yeah, she's
mom,
just she's an overprotective Jewish mother, like all our.
Uh-huh. And she
But
doesn't like that when I meet somebody through the computer that I don't know their last name.
I mean, yeah, online dating's hard. I do have that. I mean, yes, for my safety, but more like if the date's just going so badly, I need like a friend, like there's an emergency and they're calling me or like texting me, kind of cop out. Because I mean, sometimes you do need to leave a first date without kissing the person. I did say yes, that's like a good closure thing. But if you know that date's just going that badly, text the friend to get you the hell out. Sometimes you just can't stand and be around the person. But yeah, in New York City, it's certainly a little easier because we don't really drive. We take the subway or we meet somewhere. And I do miss I miss like a coffee date or a lunch date. I guess it's so, oh, do you want to get dinner? Which I guess is more like, oh, because then what happens later in the evening. It's alluding to sex. But I mean, yes, you can go have sex after coffee, you can go have sex after lunch or brunch. But there's something nice about remembering coffee dates and lunch dates can exist. My brain always goes to dinner, which is something I should work on, not let it go there. But yeah, what about you, Shocky?
So I don't know. I'm never like a scared person. So like, other than like sharing my location with my friends, which I do. I'm sorry, my cat's being annoying.
What
Um,
part of the world do you live in again?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay, okay.
And I moved here, like I said, a few years ago without knowing anyone here. So I've already, anybody I meet is kind of in that situation where you're kind of skeptical of them. But I find myself like in a dating situation as more the person who needs to be, to prove I'm not dangerous, if that makes sense. Just because the way I dress and who I am, like I'm usually trying to make my date comfortable rather than worrying about my own safety. I'm usually not too scared of other people.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, like, I'll bring flowers to someone on a first date. That's kind of like people don't really do that anymore, but I find it so lovely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I don't know. When's the last time someone was brought flowers on a first date? I haven't been brought flowers on a first date in a while, but I bring the flowers. Yeah, it's not a.
Flowers have a sore spot with me. I like every time I give someone flowers, like I don't know what it is. Like they always like die in their back seat. Like they never like take them in the house or. I was like, you know what?
Once
Aw.
you give them, you have to just let it go.
Yeah.
You ever find that because we have these masculine tendencies or looks or whatever, that people don't think, that we might like flowers or, those gestures. Just because I'm a butch woman doesn't mean that I'm not still a woman, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that I would like flowers once in a while. Or a woman got to my heart one time because she took the time to learn my favorite candy, and instead of for Valentine's Day getting me a bouquet of flowers, she literally made me a bouquet of Reese's cups with,
Oh, I love that.
with wooden skewers and a big bag of Reese's, and made it in and put it in a vase, but it's the gestures of learning someone, learning what they like, and even just the niceties of getting flowers for no reason,
The thought and the thought behind it is usually what.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I know. It's because I present very butch too, and it's like would never occur to someone to do that. I know practicing chivalry goes a long way.
You think you should open the door for your date?
Yeah.
I do, yeah. Or vice versa, if they get
But
to
yeah,
me.
that's a
If they
two-way,
get it
that's a
to
two-way thing. Who gets to the door first opens it for the
There's
other.
a
Like,
there's a funny scene in Kissing Jessica Stein, the two women that are dating, and they're fighting over who pays for the cabin. They're fighting for who opens the door, but it's cute.
I love that movie. That's hilarious.
It's my favorite movie.
now I will, when walking up to the car, open the passenger, if I'm driving and we're going somewhere, whether I'm dating, I'm married to the person, like I'll open the car door, let them get in the car, go around and get in the driver's side. Little gestures like that. When I was a smoker, and if I was dating someone who smoked, I found it very appealing, for her to reach over and light my cigarette, or for me to do the same for them. Just that little 2-second, here, I got it. Just, I don't know, things like that. And yes, welcome, Scott. So nice to see you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're talking about dating in the community, what it's like to date at our age, or where we're at, different things that we've come across. So you're welcome to pipe in on the topic anytime you'd like. There you go, Chanson. Is there a haiku there somewhere?
Oh,
There
yeah,
should be.
always.
Hanku,
Always.
haiku.
Yes.
Right. But yes, it could be erotic, lighting someone's cigarette with, the intent, the eye contact, how you do it. Is it done with a Bic or is it done with a Zippo? Like, it can be a whole, opening to, the next move. So yeah, there could definitely, and I see Sky's going, shaking her head.
I'm nodding because although I don't smoke anymore, I know how that goes. Like, I totally know how that goes.
Absolutely. Especially if it's kind of a surprise. You go to pull your cigarette out and they just whip out the Zippo. Here, let me get that for you, and then kind of give you this smoldering look. So, yeah. I think a lot of little gestures like that can be turned erotic, given the time, the people, the nature of the conversation, and the way it's brought about.
In the dynamic, like there's like, yeah, it's a whole dynamic sometimes that goes along with certain things that can make things that seem normal or even just like chivalry like can actually turn erotic depending on the dynamic. And things that seem normal to other people can just be chivalry, and chivalry shouldn't be dead. I don't believe it's dead in my eyes. And it can make somebody's whole world to be, to have chivalry.
Absolutely.
Especially because of the world we live in now. Like, it can make somebody's whole day. I know it makes my day when somebody like just extends a gesture. It's like, wow,
Even in our friendships, yeah. I will say it's not a chivalry thing, but when people, it's more like the affection. But if someone you guys will laugh at this, but if someone buys me a beanie, and it's like because there are very different styles of beanies, as we know, or at least I know, that if they buy a beanie that's my style, I'm like, okay, they were paying attention, but it's not fetishized because women especially, fetishize my beanie, and that turns me off. Like, I've had women ask me to keep my beanie on in bed, and that, like, making love, and that I don't like. But if they buy me it, like, maybe a month into the relationship, like, I saw this and it made me think of you, or if they want to try the beanie on because they maybe want to get into that is kind of cool to me. And like vice versa, like stuff for them, like, if it doesn't have a beanie, but whatever they're into. I saw this, or I read this book because I thought it would be interesting. You were reading it, or something like that.
It's funny that you said that, Lizzie, because being a preacher, some like in the Black church, our favorite shoes are Stacey Adams. So a friend of mine, we always had a joke that when we would lose our virginity to a girl, like, we would have sex with our Stacey Adams socks on. And it was just I mean, since you went up the beanie thing, like, that was like our preacher joke that we would like have with Stacey Adams socks. But yeah, that was just and from that point on, all I wore was dress socks. So like, I have a drawer full of dress socks now. So
drawer full of beanies, drawer full of dress socks.
Yeah.
I think y'all have a point.
Is that what you said?
I was just gonna say, I think y'all have a point. A lot of it has to do with thought, like putting thought into, your gifts, and like, okay. And sometimes it's just subtle things, like if somebody needs something or wants something, it's like, and then their birthday or a special occasion, or even if it's just a regular day comes around, you're like, okay, I know this person wants something. And it's like, I know what they want. It's a thoughtful thing. It's like, I've had a person in the way past, like maybe 7-10 years ago, I was hinting on something and they gave me a Snickers bar, which was I was like, I think it was for Christmas. And I was like, and the same, a Snickers bar, but like the same person, I had drawn them something, and then I'd given them a piece of their computer. I think it was like a soundboard or something like that they needed. And then the last thing I had given them for Christmas was this tin of M&Ms. but it wasn't just any M&Ms, it was custom made. So like I had their 3 favorite colors in like it was made of all their 3 favorite colors, which was purple, blue, and white. And then like on the M&Ms it had printed those little stormtrooper heads and had Star Wars in because they love Star Wars. And then I think I had like I love you on one of the M&Ms or a few of them.
Yeah.
And so it was like literally I had put all this thought in and they gave me a Snickers bar. It's like,
That's so cute. I do that for friends for their Broadway shows. I'll go to the M&M store in Times Square or just any show they do, and I'll get the color that coordinates with the show's poster, and then I'll write because it doesn't cost any extra money to write on the M&Ms their name and the date, like when the show opened, if it's like opening night, and then depending on how long the title is, I'll abbreviate it, but the name of the show, because it just, and those things keep, and you can share it with your cast. It's like, oh, like, yeah, my friend, or even if it was a partner or boyfriend or girlfriend, bought me these M&Ms if they can eat chocolate for opening night. And then it's like a nice thing to share with your company. If someone comes in your dressing room, like, oh, would you like some M&Ms or whatever? It's like little things like that. For me, I mean, this is my favorite. Yeah. I mean, for me, like, this is my favorite beanie. And I still wear it because it's my favorite beanie, but it's sad because it's like the person that gave it to me is the person that queer baited me. And that could be weird. Oh, why is she wearing a beanie where someone really hurt her? Well, I can detach the hurt from something that makes me feel myself, because they got me the beanie because it has an evil eye on it. And, in poetry, they call me the beanie god. And it makes me sad that like someone who saw me for who I really am, like they put the kind of cherry on top, that it's the person that also hurt me the most recently. And that's hard. That's what, I learned the term love bomb, and that's when I learned the term queer baiting. So it's hard, but maybe I'll get another beanie that makes me feel just as special eventually, whether I buy it for myself or someone else buys it for me. But sometimes it's hard to disassociate that stuff.
Absolutely.
you're right.
I think going back to what Skies has said, it's the thought, and Shaki said on it too. But for me, it's the idea that someone took the time to understand me, learn something about me, like that you figured out that I like this certain series of books, and I happen to be missing book number 12, and you've went out of your way to go find that particular book, versus, oh, you just know I like to read and you bought me whatever is number 1 on the New York Times bestseller list. There's different levels of consideration, understanding. A person that really is going to want to pursue a further relationship with me is going to be that one that goes buys that missing book out of my series number 12. A person that's just interested in surface stuff and whatnot, maybe that person that only just buys me a random book because they know I like reading, but they haven't bothered to find out that I like paranormal romance and I definitely am into vampires and werewolf. You know what I mean? They just buy something generic.
Yeah.
So I guess it's the level of thought that goes into these things as well, that determines how far on the dating road we're going to go down.
Oh, absolutely. Like if someone buys me, just whether it's my favorite poet or not, if someone buys me a poetry book, like someone I'm seeing, it actually turns me off, because I feel like they're only seeing that one part of me. Or if they're like, oh, I want to go see a Broadway show, I'm like, well, no, I got 3 careers, but I don't want to go see a Broadway show right now. I don't want to go sit in a dark theater right now. That's what I do most days. So it's, for me, it would be more like, so my favorite author in the whole world is J.D. Salinger. Now, do I need more copies of J.D. Salinger books? No. But if someone I was dating was like, oh, I saw, even if it was for like $1 on the Strand cart in New York, they're like, oh, I saw this vintage copy for $1 of Franny and Zooey, which is my favorite book. And you'd mentioned that, you love J.D. Salinger, and would you have it? it's not the fact that it was $1, let's say it was free. They were listening more than, oh, I'll just get her some poetry book because that's what she does. And, and whether it, so it's not like, could someone be like, oh, that's so cheap. They took that off a dollar cart. No,
It's the
they were,
fact that they listen to
yeah,
their
they
favorite
listen to
author.
me. Or even if, I mean, I don't smoke, but I guess if someone smokes it, someone's like, they actually paid attention to the brand of cigarettes they were smoking. That could mean something to someone who is a smoker. So, yeah.
Yep, I agree. I totally agree. I've read like Ma Duke said, it also is the level, like you're saying, it's the levels, not just a poetry book, or it's there's different levels, totally different
It really
levels.
does turn me off if someone I'm dating showers me with poetry books. I'm like, I won't talk about anything else. Like for me, like let's talk about who you're gonna vote for in the next election. That's big for me.
Right.
Like my litmus test is very hard to pass because if you're like I'm a Democrat, and after the shitstorm we just went through for 4 years, you're not any way, shape, and form voting for equity and equality. I'm like, you can leave.
That gets into that whole like new wave thing with like love language and like how you want to be loved, learning your partner's love language.
Yes. Yeah, there's a test. I can't remember, but there's some test you take for love language, and it's really interesting. And there's a lot of questions. It takes a little while to do on your phone or your computer, however you're doing it, probably your phone, but it's interesting. See, I can't remember what mine was.
It's good to know your deal breakers and, try not to even go on a first date with, I won't date someone who smokes or who's HIV positive. So I try to find that out, but I'm not always correct. So sometimes I find that out on the date.
I don't like to date a smoker either. It's not, I'd prefer it. I'm trying to be a little more lenient, also hoping that if someone I have a crush on does smoke, maybe I can get them to quit for me because I think I'm.
I don't know. I mean, this could be me, but like I'm actually learning that now and I may be tight-wadded here, but now it's like I have certain things like you said that you can do and certain things, or that you can tolerate, and certain things that you can't. Like I'm learning that if I don't, how do I put this? This is my experience. If I don't stick that out there, if I don't like let them know and set my boundaries with that, or at least, just put that out there, I'm probably going to be miserable at one point or another, and now that I don't smoke, I can't date a smoker, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because they smell and it would want you to make you smoke, and it makes sense.
Yeah, that and just a lot of different things with smoking right now, and I'm just like, I quit on March 11th, cold turkey, so it's just kind of like it's a big change, but at the same time, like I know that if I date a smoker, I'm gonna be miserable. Like that's just.
Well, happy almost 1 month. That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
That's
Oh,
all.
yeah.
That's great. That's great. So and
Just
yeah, I mean,
realized that.
I would prefer to not date. No, that's awesome. I mean, I've not been a smoker, but I know that's not an easy thing to quit. So
you.
congratulations in that journey. But
What's
I mean,
one of
I
the
would,
hardest addictions.
yeah. I mean, my dad got my mom to quit smoking,
Oh,
and they've been married almost 32 years.
oh wow.
So
Yeah, it's possible, but I think for me, I guess if I was trying to get somebody to quit smoking, it would be a little difficult, especially now, but even down the line. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. It's like, I would rather, if somebody wants to change, I'll help them change. But if they don't want to change, I don't want to.
if they're not going to change, I'm not going to hang around them. But if they smoke and I kind of couple dates in, I'm like, well, is like smoking really like something you can't quit?
Right.
Yeah. And if it's like something I really like, kind of like my favorite TV show is Sex and the City, and Carrie didn't want to give up cigarettes for Aiden.
Oh.
But then her friends kind of were like, you don't want to give cigarettes up for a hot guy? And then she did. And then she eventually, I mean, she like kind of relapsed a couple times, but eventually she quit for him. And she was like, or she says, like, famously goes, I really did it for me, but yes, like a hot guy is obviously, or
You didn't say that.
partner you know, a nice partner is more valuable than a cigarette.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good
And
point, I guess.
ultimatums, like if I'm trying to date someone and they feel the need to give me an ultimatum, like that in and of itself is a deal breaker, because I don't feel like our relationship should be based on a decision like that.
I won't date someone that vapes though. Like, I mean, the cigarettes are yucky to me, but vaping is actually yuckier to me. So,
Yeah, I guess it just depends on the dynamic between you and the person. Like, I guess all in all, it depends on the dynamic. Because some people, for me, I guess like some people have different dynamics with other people than I would have with a partner. So I mean, I can only speak from my experience, but I can see where everybody's coming from. I can definitely see that. You know, it's just all in their dynamic.
yeah, we all have different tolerances.
But I believe that it's good to set your tolerance boundaries, your boundaries early on, along with those expectations. You know, if I'm dating someone and I would like it to go further, I want to be honest, and I want them to be honest. You know, these are my deal breakers. What are yours? These are things that I'm not willing to compromise on. These are things that I am willing to compromise on, you know, and we're a few months into this and I'd like to take it further. What do you think? You know, where are we going with this? Again, and we keep coming back to communication, but I can't expect someone not to cross my boundaries if I don't express to them what my boundaries are. You don't know that, you know, you leaving your milky, sugary coffee spoon on the counter is a big pet peeve of mine and kind of gross, you know, unless I tell you. I don't have the right to get pissed off at you for doing it if I don't tell you and express to you, hey, this really, really bothers me. And I'm asking you to maybe get a saucer and put your cup, your spoon on. And I'm using this stupid, silly analogy, but it doesn't matter if it's something as silly as, you know, your sugary coffee spoon, or, you know, something as important as, I don't know, consent for physical touch, or whatever the case may be. I can't expect somebody not to cross my boundaries if I don't express what those boundaries are.
You've got
And-
me thinking.
Yeah.
Do you find, Ma, that when you are in love with someone, that you more see the positives as opposed to the things that bug you? So if you're in love, you're not going to see that coffee spoon on the table, which you don't like.
No, because for me, I tried to take as honest a look at the relationship and the person as I would want them to take at me. And those little pet peeves, if they go unexpressed, build up and become, you know, a bigger thing. So yes, I see that. Yes, I see what you're saying. Do you look at the person with rose-colored glasses because you're in love, and you overlook those little things because you're in love? In my opinion, I think you should not overlook those things just because you're in love. You know, you take that love and you want it to grow and you want it to build. So you got to express those little things right from the gate. You know, I can be head over heels with somebody, but I at this point in my life, I like a certain order in my house. I like things where they belong. I don't do mess and clutter well because it's chaotic for me. And I don't create well in chaos. I don't work well in chaos. And I've learned this about myself. So, you know, if I love somebody, or, you know, if I'm falling in love with somebody, we got to talk about this because I want to be with you, but I can't be with somebody that's going to trigger all of these things for me. So can we talk about it? Can we compromise? Can we figure out how to live together? Because if we can't, then we need to, stop this and move on. And maybe that's just me being picky in particular because
I
I'm
think-
older.
I don't know. I agree 100%. Like for me, I'm such a neat freak. If someone left a yucky kind of sugary spoon out, it would make me cringe. But we do need to communicate those boundaries because love can be blind, and it leads into a more heavier thing of that. Yeah, leaving a sugary coffee spoon is yicky to some people, to me and you, but if we are so blinded when we're falling in love with someone or we're head over heels for them, it can blind so much more. Because for me, the only person I've ever been in love with, a woman several years ago, I was so in love with her that I didn't know she had a drinking problem. And I would drink with her, not a lot. I never had a drinking problem. I don't even drink. But I never noticed that hers became problematic. I just thought, okay, she has this much when we go out, or, and then the relationship was over, and it wasn't for that reason. It ended for other reasons. But when we came back into each other's life about a year and a half ago, briefly, I started, because I had moved on from her. We were more in each other's lives as just friends at this point. But I noticed her drinking then, and it was because I didn't have the mask of love and the rose-colored glasses blinding me, that a couple months into us trying to be friends again, I was like, something's wrong. And I noticed, and then it made me think about a relationship several years ago. And I'm like, love is really blind because she's an alcoholic. And, we can't be friends for that reason right now. And we can't be in each other's lives romantically, not just because of the alcoholism for her, but we're just not meant to be. I think we really tried, and it's not going to happen. But a sugary spoon can open your eyes to something such more serious. And yeah.
I was just gonna say I agree, and I think it does a disservice to not only you but the other person, because if you don't let them know, how are they gonna I'll just put it this way: I've been in some relationships where people ghosted me. I had no idea what I did wrong, and what's interesting is it can be something really simple or something a boundary breaker, but at the same time, you would never know if people kept ghosting. It was like doing you a disservice because you wouldn't communicate. Like, talking about me, it was doing me a disservice because I wouldn't communicate, or the other person wouldn't, and it was doing the other party a disservice because they would never know what they did wrong, like literally. And it could be something as simple, like you said about the spoon, but maybe they grew up in a household where that wasn't an issue, so they never thought to, it was just something that they were used to. And now, given most people know that, untidiness can be a very big problem, if not at the very least. But that doesn't mean that the person growing up in that would know. You know what I mean? Maybe they grew up with it, whatever. It's not our responsibility to fix others, but if they don't know, they don't know. You know what I mean? There's not
Exactly.
I get it. Yeah.
I mean, I wrote a poem that has a part of this in. Because of a childhood trauma, I roll and tuck into my blankets like a burrito. You will never find the edge of my blankets hanging over the side of my bed. In my sleep, I will pull the blankets up. It's just a natural ingrained thing after all of this time in my life. If I express this to you, and then you have a problem with the fact that I roll the blankets into a burrito, or you use that against me, or, it's an expectation. I gave you a piece of information about me, and then you still have this unspoken expectation that we're going to share the blankets and it's going to cause a problem between us because I don't, well, that's that communication and that level of wanting to understand the other person. I don't believe that people should walk around tiptoeing around other people's triggers. It's our responsibility to address our own triggers and deal with them so that they no longer become triggers. But if you're with someone and they run into a trigger like that, I do believe it's their minimal responsibility to understand and accept. If we're in this relationship and I've told you this traumatic thing and why I do this, wouldn't it be an expectation? And there's that word again, that you're going to have some allowances and understanding of why I do what I do until I work through it, that I no longer do it. You know what I mean?
I
Or
would
give
only
me.
do that. I would only do that when I'm in a relationship. At the beginning, like in the first 3 dates, I accept my date as they are, their whole package, all the things I like, all the things I don't like. And I ask myself by the third date, can I accept this whole package? And I won't ask anyone to change at the beginning. It's just a question of, can I accept who they are? And if I can't, we just go our separate ways. So, but what you're talking about, I will do only once I'm in a relationship.
I'm trying to be better about people's, I'll use the word differences instead of flaws, which is a word I would have used maybe just 2 weeks ago, because of how we're born and raised and, how we're treated in life. And we don't necessarily unveil on a first date all the traumas or experiences, positive or negative, we've been through, because that's a lot, right? There's so much vulnerability and on a first date, whether, even if it's like a friend that now you're moving into a romantic relationship with, there's so much that you necessarily haven't divulged. And then, it's so different. But there are obviously deal breakers, and that's just, protecting yourself. If it's not going to work out, it's not going to work out. But, I'm not, for me, part of my litmus test for a long time was how someone dated in the Democratic primary. And that still is a big deal to me, but it's more now, I'm a little less firm about it. It's more like, well, did you vote for Trump or did you vote for a normal person? And if you say you vote for Trump, you're going to be asked to leave, because I have no patience for that. But if you're willing to explain to me why you at the time might have voted for a Democratic candidate, the Democratic candidate I chose to not vote for, I'm willing to hear you out a little more. Or if you're not as familiar with an author that I am, because I was coming off as very elitist, and I don't like that. I don't want to come off as elitist. And it's important to learn from each other, because there's stuff they're going to tell me that is important for me to open my eyes to. So I try to say differences rather than flaws. I guess that's just me.
I can agree with that. Had a thought and that train derailed.
I have a different topic, which going back to the first date, which is, what do I do to get ready for the first date so that I will be putting my best foot forward? And two of the things that I do is, I know what my best body parts are. So my legs I think are my best parts. So I like to wear shorts on a date so I can show my legs. And also I like to show that I have chest hair, so I like to wear a button-down shirt to show that I have chest hair.
Yeah, I mean, we all do that, right? I'll put a little makeup on for a first date, and I don't wear makeup that often. But
Oh, I want to go
Understand
back
that.
to you said, Robert, you know, by the third date, you're asking yourself, can I accept this person for all of their good things that I like and all of their, you know, things that I don't necessarily like about them? Do you find that you can really get to know enough about a person in 3 dates? To make that kind of choice, you know, can I accept this whole person? Do I know enough about this person to accept all of them? Because as you and Elizabeth both alluded to, those first couple of dates, we're trying to put on our best face, you know, we're putting our best foot forward. We're looking at the shiny book cover. We're not looking at the dog-eared pages, you know? So can you really get to know a person in 3 dates? Or can you find that person that you click with and, you know, the next thing you know, it's 14 hours later and y'all drank 2 bottles of wine and discussed anything and everything under the sun, and you've clicked on all levels and you feel like you've known them for all of your life.
I want to know where this magic number of 3 came from. Why it's like, oh, by the third date we have sex or we kiss or whatever.
Comes
Like,
from baseball.
oh, okay, so 3 strikes, you're out.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
by the third day, for my deal breakers, smoking, HIV status, if they're within like 10 years of my age, um, I can figure that out, and I can get some sense of their reliability. Do they show up at the date on time? And do they, while we're interacting, do they look at me, or are they on their phone their whole time, so they're not really interested in me? Um, and are they willing to plan one of the dates? And another one of the things is, am I physically attracted to them? So when I'm after the date is over, do I have a fantasy about them? I can get all of that by the third date.
Okay,
That's good.
that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I
mean,
can
I think
see where he's coming from, even though I have a difference, but I can definitely see where he's coming from because as far as the very basics, the deal breakers, like most of the deal breakers, maybe not all, but most of them you can tell certain things. Like if they smell like cigarette smoke, like definitely by the third date, you'll know that little tinge of smell. You know, you might not be able to tell if they're HIV positive. However, you know, there may be something they may get a call, you know, just a lot of things that may tip certain deal breakers one way or the other. Or you know what I mean? And I know that for me, it would take a lot more than 3, but I can see where he's come from for the very basics.
Right.
If he has certain very basics, I can see where 3 or a certain amount of number, maybe 4 or 5, something like that. But I can see where he's talking about the very basics that
Right.
he would require. You know, that's his dynamic. I understand where he can.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that and take this to the next question, which is, do you all ask for an STD report? You know, I get tested once a year. I have a printout. You know, if somebody asks me, you know, are you STD free? Here's my, you know, I can say that. I actually learned that from a woman I was dating in the early 2000s. One of the first questions she asked me is, you know, if we're going to be dating, do you, you know, are you regularly screened for STDs?
I do. I don't think
I do.
there should be any shame. You're taking care of each other's health, your own health. I have no problem at all. Anyone asking me that on any, whether it's a first date or 10th date, it doesn't matter. I think I see that as maturity. That's a big maturity. That's a big maturity sign for me if someone is confident, I'll use that word, confident enough to ask you that, because that's not necessarily an easy question for someone to ask. But yeah, it shouldn't be, it should be a positive thing to ask that. It is a positive thing. You're taking care of your health. So yeah.
If you're concerned about your safety and somebody else's safety both, yeah, it's definitely maturity. Definitely.
And it's,
Being concerned about somebody's safety, that's a big factor.
and it's not saying to them like, oh, it sounds like you've had a lot of partners, maybe you should get checked. It's just being like, we're human and we're sexually active and protect each other. It's not a shaming thing.
Right.
And to piggyback off
Especially
what
if-
you just said, somebody
especially
could
if
have sex with one, get something. Somebody could have sex with 100 people, have nothing.
Yeah.
Before I have sex with a man for the first time, I do disclose my HIV status and that I have no STDs, and then I ask him for his status. The first time also, I make sure the lights are on and I do a visual inspection of his body for any signs of STDs. And when I've been in a relationship for 6 months, if I want to have unprotected sex, I will suggest that we go to the local GLBT community center and get tested for HIV at the same time. And I've done that.
Yeah, especially if you're gonna offer up, I regularly get screened for STDs and am wondering, what your status is before we move forward, something like that. Definitely, I find essential in this day and age.
If you can't, in my opinion, if you can't ask someone that, you're probably not mature enough to have sex.
Right?
Like seriously, like it's the same thing. Like, I mean, if you're not mature enough to buy a condom, not mature enough to have sex. I mean, get sick, or if it's a heterosexual couple pregnant. I mean,
Right.
are you ready for a baby, or are you okay getting an STD or an STI? No,
Ma, how early on in dating have you shown another woman a document of a health report of your
First
status
date.
of an STD?
First
How
date.
soon?
First date.
First date. And how did that?
She asked, and I said, "Here's mine. Where's yours?" We
And
did
how
not
did
have
that
sex
go?
on the first date, but we disclosed that so that we could feel comfortable going forward with the dating process. That part was out of the way, so we knew if we went out some night and went back and it got a little too hot and heavy, we were already covered. We didn't, so as early as the first date, yes.
Wow.
First date for me too. I've had I'm I could say pansexual, but it's just different. But I have had sex with men, women, transgender, just a lot of different. And so like first date, always first date. And if they weren't comfortable, if they're like, why don't you believe me? Yeah.
Well,
No,
Yeah,
no, no,
I
no.
mean-
If they weren't, and if they say, well, I haven't had one, I usually have had people who, if they say I haven't had one recently, I'll go ahead and get one so that we are both on the same page. Love that. And I have that response a lot. So, that was when I was dating, I had that response a lot. But yeah,
and I think it also, we keep throwing around that word maturity, but maybe connection, I mean, not connection, commitment. Somebody is committed to making sure themselves is okay on a regular basis, and whether or not they're willing to share that, like, is it a sign of, I'm committed to dating you, not necessarily committed to being in a relationship with you. Okay, but I'm committed to dating you, so I feel comfortable enough going forward that I can tell you my status, I can show you my status, so that if we get to that point where, it just happens because we're all human. We know that we could go out with somebody and not have any intentions of sleeping with them. And then bam, them dynamics are like on point, and it's like that the chemistry is just flying, boo. But if you get that out of the way early on, in the first initial few conversations, dates or whatever, it takes a certain stress out of the relationship, I think, out of the friendship, out of the dating, just overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just gonna say also, I feel like not only does it have the commitment of, hey, from your point of view, but also like, hey, I'm committed to letting you know that you can trust me, at least, that I'm gonna show you a piece of paper that you can trust, unless they forge something, that I doubt that. But like, yeah, it's like, hey, here's a token of, potential, you can trust me, right up front. That takes all the, that takes a lot of the, that takes some of the, hey, can I trust you out of the equation, like that. That's one token. And, there are a lot of tokens of, hey, can I trust you? You have to go into two. But that would be one of them that would really, if somebody wasn't willing to take a simple test, and there's like a lot of places that will, do it either for free or low cost. If somebody's not willing to do that one thing, and I don't think it's a big thing, only because, at least to me, it's not a big thing. If you're willing to date, if you're willing to, want to get to the point where you may be in a, having those type of relations, I don't think that's a big thing to do. I personally, I mean, and I'll be woman enough to be like, hey, and if they say I don't have enough money, hey, I'll help you search for a free clinic. And if there isn't one, sometimes I'll be the one to pay for it. But if they're not willing to do that one step, that tells me a lot about how this probably isn't going to work for me. Tells me a lot right there. If they're not even willing to go that step.
Absolutely agree.
One of the challenges I have maybe a few times a year is that on a first date, I don't want to have anal sex. So if I am doing a hookup, I don't select a man whose profile says they want to have anal sex on a first date. And then when we're together, I have found several times that they want to have unprotected anal sex, and they expected me to be prepared to that and have done an enema before they came over so that I would have been prepared. And so I've experienced that several times. And I've told them that I wasn't going to be their bottom right then. And it's worked out for me, but it's been a real miscommunication when the person has had in their profile where they didn't say they wanted to be a top immediately. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody had a great question.
Yeah, the Chanson, does dating require sex?
Of course not.
No, I do want to say, like, my response was to, though, that I still want to know their STD status. Like, literally, upfront STD status, we may get a year in without having relations, but let's say I got a year in without having relations and then found out they were HIV positive. That would be a very hard, that's a deal breaker for me, first off. But secondly, that would just be a hard thing to go through, to be like, hey, I didn't know your STD status until a year in. We hadn't even had relations, and find out that, that would be really hard.
Yeah.
Well, things like that aren't always just based on sexual activity either.
No.
I have members who are HIV positive, and it's like, even their emergency care, things like that. You need to know those kind of things. If they fall and get hurt and there's blood, how are you going to handle their, the blood? You should always be careful, but it's one of those things that you should know, even if it's not sexual.
Exactly. That was my whole point about that. That, like, there could be just so many different things.
But it also shouldn't be something that, it's not, AIDS is not a death sentence anymore. Right. It shouldn't be seen as scary. It's, you know, you can, obviously if it's a deal breaker for someone, they don't have to be in a sexual relationship with someone who's HIV positive, but it's not a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker for me. It's not a deal breaker for many people. There are ways to protect yourself and be in a healthy relationship with someone because of how they are, you know.
Yeah, and people who are not sexual, if they're just romantic rather than sexual, because there's a lot of different spectrums out there.
Of course.
If they're romantic, then there's that may not be a deal breaker for them because, they don't have the sexual aspect. So like you said, it's not always a deal breaker. But it is somebody, Shockey, I think it was, said it, when it comes to handling blood, when it comes to emergency situations, that is still a need to know basis. And I think it's not even just with HIV or AIDS, just like in any STD situation or transmittable or any
Of course,
contagious.
anything contagious.
I have a unique experience and perspective on this. In 2000, I found out I was hepatitis C positive. Okay, I've been since cleared. In 2016, I did Harvoni and that cleared me. But in the early 2000s, I was dating a woman who was HIV positive. And my mother wanted me, you can't be with somebody like that, they're sick, all of the reasons, right? And I looked at her and I said, Mom, I said, I have a potentially fatal disease that is transmitted by, saliva and sexual fluids. And she is running the same risks as I am with just a different disease. So would you want me to spend the rest of my life alone and nobody to ever date me because I'm Hep C positive? You know what I mean?
Mama say? What'd
Well,
Mama say?
it took her a while. She did eventually come around to understanding my way of thinking, but it begs the question, is what is and deal, like Elizabeth said, there's ways of having sexually healthy relationships with someone who is HIV positive without exposing yourself. So where do you draw a line? Because when I had Hep C, I was very, 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 very stringent about my toothbrushes, because if my gums bled a little bit, nobody could use my toothbrushes, my razors, that blood exchange thing. If I had a cut on my hand, I'm very careful about, who comes in contact with my blood, who's cleaning my wounds, those types of things. So again, it's more than just sex. It's those daily intimacies, of living with someone. You're chopping vegetables and they cut the tip of their thumb. You've got to be aware, if they're Hep C positive, how to handle that wound, how to handle that blood so that you don't expose yourself. I've learned a lot having that perspective of having, a potentially sexually transmitted disease that could put somebody else's life at risk. And that's a heavy weight to carry.
Am I the only one in this room that I don't know if I could use my partner's toothbrush, but that just is a me thing?
Oh no, I would never.
Yes, I understand that, but teenage kid can't find their own, and there's moms, let me brush my teeth real quick,
Right. No, I get it.
There's always that possibility. So I was always very stringent. The 13-year-old who's going to meet her friends for a swimming party needs to shave her legs and grabs my razor and not hers. If there's a little, microscopic blood from mine, and then she cuts her leg and there can be that blood transfer. So, even with a partner, you have to be, you can't kiss your partner if you've got open wounds in your mouth, like you had a bad tooth and you have a little bit of an abscess, you know what I mean? you have to be aware of
I
those things.
understand. I
So
understand.
it's just a communicable thing as well as a sexual thing. It's a health thing. You know?
Yeah. I had a partner at one point. I don't remember if it was 2016 or somewhere around there. I had a partner at one point. We had relations. We used, protection, whatever. And I'm so glad. He wasn't into kissing. That was great. But it was not, I guess it was the next few days, within the next week, he called me because he was sick and going to hospital. And I didn't think much about it. And I'm so glad. I get tested every year, not just for this reason. I've been tested since then, way back when. But he had said that he didn't know, but his liver had about living out because he had Hep C and he did not know.
He had what?
Hep C. He didn't know.
Oh.
He didn't know. Like, he just didn't have money and didn't care to go to doctors and stuff like that. But this particular time he had pain and he just couldn't deal with it. So he went to the ER and that's how he found out.
Yeah, I was getting ready to tell her thank you, and she dropped off. Yeah, Hep C can be a very, very painful disease.
Yeah.
But it is our 9 o'clock hour. I would like to thank everyone for taking time out of their Sunday evening to come and join us. We'll be back here in 2 weeks. Elizabeth, is the topic for our next show?
Just pulling that up.
Is it ageism next time?
I think so. Let me just double check it on our calendar here. It is. We're gonna talk next about people of color in the LGBT.
That's right. People of color. So please come back and join us for that show. We would look forward to having you join the discussion, either here live with us in Zoom or on Facebook. We appreciate you all coming out, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.